You always knew something was off with your partner. At first, you thought it was just the typical relationship hiccups that you would eventually work through. But as time went on, you couldn't help but feel like something was not quite right. You start to notice that your partner always seems to be in control of the situation. They never apologize for anything and often gaslight you, making you question your own sanity. You begin to feel like you're walking on eggshells, afraid to say or do anything that might set them off. One day, while scrolling through social media, you stumble upon an article about covert narcissism. As you read through the signs, your heart sinks as you realize that your partner exhibits many of those behaviors. First, there is their need for constant attention and admiration. They may not be as grandiose as typical narcissists, but they still crave validation from others. They often fish for compliments or play the victim to get sympathy from others. Then, there is their lack of empathy. Your partner may appear charming and charismatic to others, but they have a hard time putting themselves in someone else's shoes. They often dismiss your feelings or make you feel like you're being overly sensitive. You also notice how your partner has a need for control. They may seem easygoing on the surface, but they're actually very manipulative. They use subtle tactics like guilt tripping, passive aggressiveness, or stonewalling to get their way. Another sign you observe is your partner's sense of entitlement. They expect special treatment from others and feel like the rules don't apply to them. They may also have a hard time accepting criticism or taking responsibility for their actions. As you continue to read, you realize that your partner's behavior fits the description of a covert narcissist perfectly. You feel a mixture of relief and sadness. Relief that you finally have a name for what's going on, but sadness that your relationship may never be what you hoped for. But it's important to remember that you're not alone. Many people have been in your shoes and have found a way to heal and move on. It may not be easy, but acknowledging the problem is the first step. You start to educate yourself more about covert narcissism and how to deal with it. You reach out to support groups and even consider seeing a therapist to help you process your emotions. Eventually, you realize that you deserve better than to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't value you as a person. You muster up the courage to leave your partner and start a new chapter in your life. It's not easy, but you start to heal and move forward. You realize that you're stronger than you thought you were, and you deserve a relationship built on mutual respect and love. And while the scars may never fully heal, you know that you'll come out of this experience stronger and wiser than ever before. As you start to rebuild your life, you can't help but reflect on the relationship you left behind. You remember the good times, the laughter, and the love you once shared. But you also remember the constant feeling of walking on eggshells and the emotional toll it took on you. You realize that you were not to blame for the relationship's failure. You were dealing with someone who had deep-rooted issues that they were not willing to address. Your partner's covert narcissism was a serious problem that only they could fix, and unfortunately, they were not willing to do so. The healing process is not linear, and some days are harder than others. You may find yourself questioning whether leaving was the right decision, or if you could have done more to salvage the relationship. But then you remind yourself of the toxicity and the emotional abuse that came with it. You remind yourself that you deserve better. With time, you start to regain your confidence and rebuild your sense of self-worth. You start to recognize your own needs and boundaries, and you become better at setting them. You learn to trust your intuition and your own judgment. You also start to recognize the red flags in other relationships, whether it's with friends or potential romantic partners. You have a better understanding of what healthy relationships should look like, and you're no longer willing to settle for anything less. You realize that leaving your partner was one of the most courageous decisions you ever made. You took a stand for yourself and refused to be a victim of emotional abuse. And while the road to healing may be long and bumpy, you know that you're on the right path. In the end, your experience with covert narcissism taught you a valuable lesson. It taught you to recognize your own worth and to never settle for less than you deserve. It taught you to trust your own intuition and to stand up for yourself. And, most importantly, it taught you that you're capable of healing and moving forward, no matter how hard it may seem.